talking about how private equity firms have been buying up all the single family homes.
Her numbers probably aren't too far off, just given what I'm seeing, even in my own neighborhood. There's only maybe 3 or 4 houses on the entire street that are actually homeowner occupied. The rest of them are owned by either rental bros or some derivative thereof, hedge funds, etc. So it's probably not too far off the mark. And keep in mind, I live in a regular suburban neighborhood. I don't live, in the inner city. Inner city's even worse. So it should be unifying. I tend to agree with what she's saying. Keep in mind for Gen Xers, Millennials, and Zoomers, just keep this in mind, you three generations. There is no bailout for you. Boomers are the last generation who get bailouts. They're not doing that again. They're not going to overtly go and bail out all those portfolios again. They're not going to do any of that shit. They're not going to bail out all those. They'll continue to bail out banks, but they'll never bail out you. You're on your own. So this really should be something that unifies those three generations to agree on what we don't want anymore. And we can disagree on what we do want, but we can say what we don't want, and what we shouldn't want is any more bailouts for these companies, and we shouldn't want them to be able to print money from nothing. Keep in mind, that's how they're buying all these properties. They're buying these properties with fake money that's counterfeit. You understand? They're counterfeiting. It's a counterfeiting ring. That's all this is. That's all the Federal Reserve is. Okay, I feel I've been very clear about this kind of stuff. In my body of work, I've been very clear that this is a counterfeiting ring, and that's all these guys are doing. They're just printing money, and then they're using the printed money to buy up all these assets, right? Because the assets are actually where the value is. Because the country has value for the people who live in it, right? But if you're just going to print a bunch of money and then give it to a bunch of people who are excited to have a bunch of money, and then well, yeah, but you don't really own a part of your country anymore. You shouldn't want that. The United States was never intended to be a nation of renters. Let me be very clear about that. Let me say that again. It was never intended that the U.S. be a nation of renters. The founders made that very clear, too. You were supposed to actually be kings on your own land, okay? Meaning that, if you were on your own land, and you could do kind of whatever you wanted to do as long as you weren't, causing any harm or loss. For the most part, it was the no commandment system, right? Just do what you want to do, just leave everybody else the hell out of it. We've kind of lost that, right? Now everybody's turned into a nation of renters, and even people who claim they're homeowners have to ask an HOA permission to do any goddamn thing. I know that I have a neighbor right now is going through that. He has to ask permission before he paints his house a slightly different color. Send in three, your first choice, second choice, third choice of what you want, and then somebody else approves your color choice. That doesn't sound like you own shit to me. It sounds like you're constantly, asking permission. It sounds like somebody else owns your property. So the builders, they create these HOA systems, and they just to keep money coming in. Like this is, has anybody got the idea that this whole thing is bullshit? This whole thing is, well, people like me are the ones out here talking to you about the idea of ownership. You can go back through my body of work on TikTok, Twitter, you name it, YouTube. I talk about this stuff all the fucking time, and the concept of ownership means that you actually do, in fact, own it. They are very quickly trying to eradicate that. And they're also doing this to the sound of applause as everybody says, oh my God, we're getting rid of squatters' rights. Not anybody thinking about just for a second here, because the term squatters' rights has been used as a pejorative, not realizing that is actually very old law. Very old. In fact, it goes back into like British common law. It's very old. And the reason it existed was because they didn't want the so-called lords of the land, right, to start just being able to kick people off the land that they've been living on for 200 years. They didn't want that, right? Even the Norman Conquest recognized that. I've covered that as well. So when you start saying that we want to get rid of that, all that's happening, and this is what's coming later on, is that eventually when your money runs out, it's no longer worth anything, and all the dollars get dried up out of circulation, and that is coming, by the way. When all those dollars get dried up out of circulation, and it's harder to get dollars because you owe dollars, right? You don't owe some other currency. You owe chicken shit fiat dollars printed out of nothing, and they can control where those dollars go. The dollars are all going to go to the illegals. They're not going to go to you, right? You understand that? They're not going to go to you. The dollars are going to go to the illegals. They want the illegals to have all this stuff because the illegals won't put up. What they'll do is they don't care about ownership. They don't care about the country. They don't care about anything they're not thinking long term about any of this stuff. Vast majority of illegals are not. They're just here to make some money and then fuck off back to their country. That's it. And half the money's going to go back to their third world shithole anyway. So this is a problem, right? And you can say like, well, but these are indigenous. You know, these are poor people that are being oppressed. No, they're not. They're not being more oppressed than Americans. You know, the younger Americans under 55 being destroyed. They're not more oppressed than that. We are already here. You understand, Americans? We in fact are already here. I don't give a shit what color you are, dude. We are already here, and we have problems here we need to deal with, not bring in more people to replace us. So the bankers can control where all those dollars go, which means they can dry the dollars up so that you can't pay anymore. When they do that, okay, they will come after your property. All you people out there who think that you own, like, I own all these rental properties, all you rental bros, dude, they don't give a shit about you. They do not give a shit about the fucking rental bros, okay? Like, dude, you guys are middlemen that they can get rid of anytime. You're disposable to them. So when you used to be able to claim the right of adverse possession, right, which would be, that's actually how this works. That's actually what frankly, that's what the country was fucking founded on, okay? Well, when you're claiming right of adverse possession, if they're getting rid of that, that means that they can make it easier for the bankers to just take all your shit and claim that it's theirs. And this is the same people. I've been very clear about this as well. This is the same people. It's the same people that did this in the Soviet Union. It's the same people who pushed all this bullshit in other countries. Like, dude, this is the same people. It's the same group of guys. It's counterfeiters. It's people who create these fake currencies and then peddle them as currencies, and then they have control over how much they can issue. Sort of like Dogcoin. Okay? It's created by the same group of people, and they can issue as much as they want. Okay? There are only two currencies that I know of off the top of my head right now that do not fit that description. One of them is gold. Like physical gold, not gold-backed nonsense, not that bullshit you see in Zimbabwe. Oh, they're going to do a gold-backed currency. There's nothing more temporary than a gold-backed anything. So, unless you're dealing with physical gold, like actual physical gold dust, gold coinage, gold bars, unless you're dealing with that, or the other one, I'll let you figure out which the other one is. It's all over my Twitter page. So, unless you're doing something that is actually cannot be conjured out of nothing, you're just going to keep getting broker and broker and broker, and it's going to continue to destroy you. So.